Welcome back to the Hoops Temple podcast. Y'all know me, Nathan Schwartz. Joining me from New Zealand, Dylan Williamson. Dylan, how you doing?
Very good, thank you, Nate. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was a lot of food. I'm just gonna say this: do you guys ever have a holiday that you roast turkey or like make a turkey for?
No.
I know you're vegan, so you probably don't remember the taste of turkey.
Thankfully
It's not.
not.
It's not good.
I
It's
know.
a dry, overcooked bird. My brother-in-law, fantastic cook. He smoked it, ended up being decent. But for Friendsgiving, I did a 4-day brisket roast, and that is how you make a meal. You cook meat slowly.
Exactly. You
Or
got to reject, reject tradition and embrace modernity. Let's get away from this dry, flavorless bird and do something more exciting. Um,
exactly.
but New Zealand, we don't have Thanksgiving. Um, but we have managed to appropriate Black Friday, and so like we get just like the blatant consumerism without like the wholesome acknowledgement of your friends and family. I feel like the like the Thanksgiving wholesomeness entitles you to the to Black Friday madness. It balances out. But we get just the bad and not the good.
I don't know. So th- I don't remember if this was Black Friday or just the game release of Pokemon, but in my mind it's always been Black Friday. Someone could look this up and confirm if when Pokemon Gold and Silver came out, if that was also a Black Friday deal. But my dad and I went to Target and like waited in line for Target to open, and there was just like the rush in there, and a woman bit my dad's arm trying to get Pokemon Silver from him. That
Jesus
is
Christ.
that is what Black Friday in America used to be. Now that we have Amazon and whatnot, there's a little bit more civility. Also, the deals are like save 20%, and it's like I could get this deal any time of the week. Uh,
Hmm.
so, not the deals are not quite as good in Black Friday nowadays. But a woman bit my dad's arm trying to get Pokemon Silver from him.
That's pretty wild. I think you guys need to learn from us. So we appropriated Black Friday, but then we're like, why would we have it last just one day? And it's gotten like progressively longer and longer.
Hmm.
And so Black Friday now is like 2 weeks long. And then there's plenty of opportunity for everyone to get into the store. You don't have to, cannibalize your fellow man
Oh, so we
to
we've
get
done even
Pokemon.
more than that. We've
Oh,
split it up. So you got Black Friday,
yeah.
but you've also got Black Friday on Thursday. Those are like the early deals.
Mhm.
Then Saturday is Small Shop Saturday, where you like are supposed to support local, and it's like the pushback on Black Friday. Then we
Okay.
have Cyber Monday, which is all of your like online deals, and then we have Giving Tuesday, which is donate to charity, and a lot of like companies, if they're supporting in Giving Tuesday, they'll match your donations or do a 2-to-1 match. um so I like how they position that right after you've spent all of your money, that they're like, hey, we'll do a 2-to-1 match if you guys want to give to charity. And I'm like, haha, suckers. I didn't buy any Christmas gifts this year because my wife handled that, so I don't know how much we spent, and I'm still giving, and you guys can do a 2-to-1 match.
Motherfuckers.
Exactly. But I think we've got something that is very similar to the Black Friday of I don't know. We had a better transition earlier of rejecting modernity or rejecting the old and embracing modernity for the NBA Cup, which has finally ended its insane, preposterous group stage. Did you follow the group stage at all?
No. I wasn't willing to spend more than like 2 minutes on it. Like I listened to like a breakdown. I'm like, oh god. I think you at one point wrote up like all the implications as well. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I can't keep track of this, man. I'll
I
wait till
took
the I'll wait till the knockout rounds.
I felt like Charlie Kirk being like, all right, if this happens, then here, and then this, and that. Or like, I was like drawing strings, and I was like, because the group B in the West was all tied and knotted up. And then if Dallas won, they were going to take the tiebreaker. And if Dallas lost, it opened up a chance for someone else to get tiebreaker. But thankfully, we're done with that craziness. We have our 8-team single elimination knockout bracket. In the East, you have the Bucks versus the Magic, then the Knicks versus the Hawks. Out West, you've got OKC versus Houston, and Dallas versus, oh gosh, I was going off the cuff. Who's Dallas playing?
Golden State?
That sounds about right. No. No, you have Dallas versus OKC. You have Houston versus Golden State.
Not bad. You get some interesting offense versus defense matchups.
Oh yeah.
Have you noticed that?
I'm very intrigued by it. Let's go through the games. And I think we probably start off with the least exciting of the games, which in my book is going to be the Bucks Magic, just in large part due to the Franz injury. And I want to say this, apology to Magic fans. If you listen to the pod, you know a bit of my Franz. It's a bit, kind of. I don't like U of M, University of Michigan guys. You suck. Which is MSU, anti-U of M. So like when I hate on Franz, it's college rivalry. Never want to see a player get hurt though, and he's playing really well. I'll give him that. But he's out. So, what is your take on Bucks Magic?
Is Chris Middleton going to be back for that?
He just came back.
He's supposed to be back, right?
Yeah, I think his first game back was against Boston. Maybe it was the game before that, but he's coming off the bench. He doesn't fully look himself, but just having him out there was really nice to see in that Bucks Celtics game, because there were just little things. There were little moments that he was able to do. I was like, oh my goodness, just having another competent NBA player out there made a huge difference. And him and Drew Holiday got into it a little bit, and then Giannis came over, and I was like, man, kind of miss you three being together.
And even if he's not fully healthy, he's probably got to be better than like Tristan Da Silva, who's I guess the starting small forward for the Orlando Magic.
Yeah, I wonder if the Magic could trade one of their 3 centers, not Jonathan Isaac. Because you really don't need Mo Wagner, Jonathan Isaac, Goga Bitadze, and Wendell Carter. I mean, it's nice to be able to platoon them out there and always have one of them out there, but do you need those 4 guys?
I think they actually do. Like they've got a very defined scheme with how they run their centers, where you have Carter as your starter, and then you go to the bench where you bring in Mo Wagner, who's an excellent offensive player but a bad defender. But you can pair him with Jonathan Isaac as well, who can play like the center defensive responsibilities. But then what happens when Wendell Carter's hurt? You don't want to start Mo Wagner, because then you don't have Isaac to balance it out, and you can't play Isaac on his own. And so then you bring in Goga as your starter. Like it's a lot of resources, but it's like a perfectly complete theory of how to run a center rotation.
Yes,
it's one of the things on their roster that actually makes the most sense. Like it's not not the best meshing overall roster, but that center rotation I think actually makes a lot of sense.
So I think of it a little bit of like when Philadelphia brought in Al Horford, where it was like, hey, we have a lot of resources contributing to if Embiid is hurt, and like having Goga just in case Wendell is hurt. You can't play all 4 of those centers. And the only reason why they're currently getting as much rotation right now is because Paolo is hurt. Once Paolo's back, there's just not room to play all 5 of those guys in those 2 spots nearly as much time as they need. And if you could flip one of them for just a decent another decent wing who could score a little bit, you're not going to get Jordan Hawkins from the Pelicans. but a Jordan Hawkins-esque type of like this guy that's kind of reduced in what he can do right now because of the log jam in front of him, but could be a really nice scoring punch. That would make the Magic very interesting to me.
That's probably the other trouble is like the way that they are able to exploit that is that centers are so undervalued. Like they got Goga on a really good deal this offseason just because like nobody wants to play bigs. And so it's like almost exploiting like a little bit of a market inefficiency where centers are undervalued and so they can accumulate them without necessarily sacrificing at other positions. You know, they had plenty of cap space. No one offered Goga or anything. They're like, oh, we might as well bring it back.
Yeah.
Whereas wing's obviously a lot more valuable. So, you know, equally good wing as, you know, a wing as good as Goga Batadze as like a fringe starter is like a first round pick type of guy. Whereas Goga is like couldn't get an offer in free agency.
Yeah. I wish this game was more exciting because the Magic have been really good this season. But I think there are going to be limits. And we'll see. I mean, tonight they're playing Phoenix. But without Paolo and Franz, I don't think they're going to have enough offense to overcome Phoenix. I don't think they'll have enough to overcome Milwaukee. And Milwaukee has sneakily been looking really good of late.
They've kind of figured some stuff out.
A lot more staggering, it feels like, watching the games. I don't have a minutes on it exactly, but they're running Dame with Brook and Portis more, and they're splitting up Giannis, and he's now able to play with Middleton, and him and Middleton look a lot better. So I think they've got a good chance at winning the tournament, but are not my pick to win the tournament.
Yeah. Do you think sneakily or quietly from the games you've seen this year, do you think Giannis is kind of washed defensively?
No. I just think
he's still probably an all defensive caliber guy.
I think he can be. I think there's enough bad body language when they weren't winning that I don't believe he's fully engaged. And I think part of it is scheme related. Lillard has to do more defensively, and Lillard's been playing a little bit better of late. But when Giannis sees Lillard get beat again and again, Giannis has to do more. Giannis has to rotate more. Giannis is having to expand more energy on the defensive end than he's had to expand in past years. And two, he's having to work harder on offense right now, and he's doing more in the mid-range. And so I think he's just tired. I would fully expect that as the Bucks figure more things out, and Giannis is able to kind of, trying to think of the word, constrict his game to what he does best. We'll see him bounce back defensively and be maybe not all defensive type, but if we still had positions on all defensive, then in consideration.
Yeah, I really hope so, because their defense has really been what's letting them down. Like they're, even when they were mediocre, are still sort of like a top 10 level of offense. And Giannis has like a ridiculous usage at the moment, 37.7 cleaning the glass usage is like ridiculous. He's shooting a lot of possessions. But the defense has been their problem all year. And like Dame was always going to be a tough fit, which we've seen last year and this year, especially not just that he's a bad defender, but the way that he's bad at defending, which we've talked about before, is not conducive to a drop system, which is where Brook Lopez is most valuable. But the Bucks have been better with Giannis on the bench defensively this year, which is really insane. And so, yeah, like hopefully as the offense becomes maybe less dependent on him, they're able to get some more talent back, get Middleton taking some of those positions that does free up Giannis to be more of a defensive, focus more of his energy towards defense. Yeah. Allocate those resources that way.
Yeah. So are you taking the Bucks over the Magic then?
Yeah. The real question is, are you taking the? I want to see how they play today. What do you think the Magic's points are going to be?
So
As
I
in,
think
how many points are they going to score?
okay, I'm going to say I think Jalen Suggs has become underrated on what he can bring to the offensive end.
Yeah.
But I think what he brings to the offensive end is usually a good reaction playing off of someone else's creation. Like, Franz drives,
Yeah.
kicks, he catch and shoots, or does a secondary drive.
Yeah. That's their second side creator.
It would not shock me if they failed to break 100 points against Phoenix's weaker defense, which it is saying a lot.
Is Durant playing?
Yeah. Or at least he was. He actually might be back out again. I know he was back.
Because they cannot get any stops without Durant. So if Durant's not playing, maybe take the over on Jalen Suggs points.
Never mind. God, I swear Durant was just back playing like a game or two ago. But now I'm seeing that he's listed as will be reevaluated. Okay, he played against San Antonio. Well, I must have re-aggravated it. I watched the Golden State games just before that. So Durant is back out.
It's awesome. So yeah, take the over on Jalen Suggs points.
All right. What game?
Magic do seem like the kind of team where their role players actually could like step up and like piece together decent offense. Like they're really bad offensively on the year, even when they've got their 2 stars. But like I feel like like Cole Anthony, Jalen Suggs, Mo Wagner, like you could see those guys piece together 70 points. Not convinced. You're taking the Bucks. Yeah, I'll take the Bucks as well.
No, I mean, like here's the thing. Mo plays really good when Franz plays really good. It's this brother synergy thing. I mean that like whenever Franz is out there balling, Mo balls out. But without Franz, I don't think you're gonna get it from Mo. Could we have the Cole Anthony bounce back? Like Cole is playing 10 minutes a night. Cole is basically on the edges of the rotation right now.
Yeah.
So I'm not expecting a ton from him, but
I mean, this is when his theoretical skill set's needed most.
Yes, this is where you could really use his scoring ability because the Magic are insane defensively. Like I've gotten into it with Magic fans. Aaron's gotten into it with Magic fans this year, but like their guard defense, you start off being guarded by Jalen Suggs and KCP, and then in the bench they bring in Anthony Black and Gary Harris. Like that is a miserable night for whatever guard is trying to play against them. Like, and then the rim protection. Then you've got 4 centers to deal with between Gogo, Wagner, Wendell Carter, and Jonathan Isaac. Like, guards aren't doing shit against them. It's just a thing. Like, if the Magic were playing the Knicks, I'd consider taking the Magic just because of how much Knicks offense is generated by Jalen Brunson.
But having all of their forwards out against Giannis is probably not a great matchup.
Probably not a great matchup. They can create a wall. They can make Lillard's life hard. I just don't think they're going to be able to score it well enough.
All right. So the least interesting game is going to have a uninteresting outcome.
I mean, I would suspect that would be my expectations.
That's what we're picking.
Yes. Let's do the other Eastern Conference game. We've got Knicks Hawks, a rematch of what was it? 3 years ago now's playoff series is where Trey shushed the Garden, taking place in the Garden. Weirdly enough, I had you look at this beforehand, but the NBA's got a weird schedule where only 2 teams are playing on Monday, and then you've got these 2 of these games happening on Tuesday, 2 of them happening on Wednesday. The Monday game is the Knicks at Toronto, and then they're playing the Wednesday game. Everyone else is coming into these games rested. Knicks have to play. It's not back to back, but it's less rest than everyone else. I don't know if that's going to be a factor, but I thought that was interesting and a little bit of a disadvantage. Also, you just have to clear customs. It's a short flight, but it's customs.
Do you think when you're a part of a $1 billion organization with a private plane that customs a little bit easier?
I do think it's easier, but I've still seen enough NBA players complain about it and being like, I don't want to play for Toronto because I don't want to have to keep going back and forth through customs every time. So, like, it's easier. But if it's enough that guys are saying, I don't want to play for Toronto because of it, it's something.
Fair. New York Knicks, number 1 offense in the NBA.
Yeah, they started to figure it out now that Cat's hitting. Mikal Bridges is starting to play better again. Words I never thought I'd say, but we've got an offense versus defense matchup. The great offense of the Knicks and the great
Tom
defense.
Thibodeau offense.
And the great Trae Young defense.
The great Trae Young defense.
Dylan, what is this world that we live in?
It's a new world, man. It's a new world. Tom Thibodeau, the great offensive coach. Do you think he really hates this?
I don't,
Like, do you think every win he's like...
Maybe. I think he's still doing his normal thing. Like, did you see Mikal Bridges? What was his minutes per game? That's the other day. He played 47 minutes.
Yeah.
He played 47 minutes and a 24-point victory. They beat the Hornets 125-101, and he played 47 minutes. I think Tibbs is at least happy about that. That's his like.
That's the compromise.
I got. Yeah, he's like, if I can ride this guy into the ground, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna play him all the minutes. Ice. That's my Tibbs impersonation.
Not bad. It's like a compromise with Knicks management. Thibodeau's like, I want rim protection at all times. I need 48 minutes of rim protection. They're like, okay, we're gonna play Karl Anthony Towns at center, the worst rim protecting center in the NBA. But you can play your players the entire game.
I mean, it is still in many regards a very Tibbsian roster, in that there is no bench. The starters are going to get a crap ton of minutes. I mean, Bridges is at 38 minutes per game, Hart 37, OG 36. Just insane workload for those 3 guys, and then like he's playing a 7-man rotation in large part.
Yeah, and it is actually very Tibbsian, because not only is it starters playing all of the minutes, but then the bench, as you say, is like 2 guys. One of them's a defensive big, and the other one is a defensive guard. Like he just brings in like 2 more defenders.
Yeah, it's an interesting team. But what do you?
And also doesn't play any young guys.
What do you think of the matchup, though? Where are we going in with this here? Because Atlanta is almost the opposite in every regards. Whereas given their defense, Dyson Daniels currently leading the league in steals with 3.1, but also leading the league in deflections on basically, we went over this pre-pod, but he's got 3 steals per game and almost 2 deflections to every steal. So he's deflecting the ball 6 times. He's disrupting basically 9 plays with either a steal or deflection per game, 100 possessions a game. So like he's disrupting a tenth of the other team's offense every single game. Hunter is now back from injury, playing great off the bench. And Reese Shea is fitting into that starting lineup. They're actually running out depth, being able to bring Larry Nance off the bench, Kong Wu off the bench, Hunter off the bench, Knicks short starting lineup. What are we thinking as far as how these teams will play against each other?
The Knicks play style is maybe offensively one that is less susceptible to the Hawks' defensive scheme because they don't shoot a lot at the rim and they aren't like a heavy ball movement team. So it's a lot of more isolation, more pick and roll, more getting to the mid range, getting to floater range, shooting corner threes, but not so much like above the break threes, where maybe the Hawks are better able to defend that sort of shot. And so I think that this actually probably is a bad matchup for the Hawks. Surprisingly good defense.
I was just looking at the Hawks numbers, and they're actually their defense is good, but they're giving up the most 3-point attempts and giving up the best percentage of threes, and yet still have a good defense. And I think that's kind of wild. I think
it's like,
I think it's good call.
It's like we were saying in our pre-podcast meeting, our pre-production meeting. The Hawks defense has been decent despite the fact that they give up a really high field goal percentage. So like they aren't like making opponents' shots difficult. They're just reducing the amount of shots they get by rebounding pretty well, not fouling that much, and just like forcing a whole bunch of turnovers. But the Knicks is an offense that relies on getting fouls, isn't an offense that relies on getting rebounds, offensive rebounds, and isn't an offense that turns it over a lot. So they're third in the league in offensive turnover percentage, and second in the league in field goal percentage, which is what the Hawks actually do badly, is defend actual field goal attempts. And so I think that, this is a tough matchup for them. The ways that the Knicks succeed offensively are not the ways that the Hawks succeed defensively.
So I know I said pre-pod that I'm taking the Hawks. Hawks are the team I'm cheering for in this NBA Cup, which apparently is not going to be over till next Tuesday, because we've got the quarterfinal games Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. Then we've got the semifinal games Saturday of this week, and then the actual championship on Tuesday, which is way too long. And who does a championship game on a Tuesday? This cup is suspect. I get we're trying to not mess with football, but like you should be able to take on football.
Is that the problem? They can't have their biggest regular season game on a weekend because they're scared of regular season football?
Yes, they're scared of both NFL and college football.
Is football even going right now?
It is. It's
okay.
Just I think it's actually the first week of the playoffs next weekend.
Oh.
No, it's not. It's the first weekend of my fantasy football league's playoffs, not real football. It's the playoffs that I care about in regards to football.
Is it the same networks that broadcast football and basketball? Couldn't the networks manipulate it so that they can? Would there be any benefit to that? There's not going to be any NFL this Saturday. It's going to be NBA Cup instead.
Okay, so there's definitely some games that are on networks. I mean, you're probably going to run into more problem with local broadcasts. Like the Pistons are on Bally Sports Detroit, which I think got bought out by FanDuel. I don't know if the station changed its name, but
yeah, Bally Sports went broke.
So they're probably
which is awesome that our NBA schedule, the worst part about NBA broadcasting is catering to these small networks, and then also these small networks are going broke, so it's not even they're succeeding anyway. even though we ruin everything to
Yeah.
please them.
So there's that. But I I think, and I think this will be a really great test to see how for real the Hawks are, which sounds ludicrous to say for a December or game, but if Dyson Daniels can do a good job as a point of attack defender against Jalen Brunson in a game with some stakes, um, can Jalen Johnson also do a good job? I'm assuming he'll get more of the matchup against Karl Anthony Towns. I don't think you want to bring Clint Capella that far away from the basket. You probably hide Clint on Josh Hart. But if they can do a good job, if they can win this game against the Knicks, I'm seriously interested in could the Hawks make the second round? Could they get lucky and make another conference finals push? I think with defense being their calling card, they're a much more frisky team, and I really like what I see out there.
The more we talk about them, like you said before, that you're gonna like pick them as like a fun upset,
Yeah, they're going all the way.
wild card to go all the way. But like the more we talk about them, the like more out on them I am. Especially when you consider that like we're saying that like the way that they have been succeeding is because like they figured out this incredible defensive scheme. But they're actually like the 14th best defense in the NBA. And so like them figuring out this great defensive scheme is like taking them from the 24th best defense to the 14th best defense, which is like a huge like difference. That is notable, but it's not like they're all of a sudden a really good defensive team. They're just getting a lot of turnovers, which is offsetting their total inability to which is offsetting their total inability to get any traditional defensive stops. And then like you would hope that if they're playing like a 2022 Toronto style where they're like, okay, we can't get any like we can't actually stop the opponent scoring when they shoot, and so we'll just stop them from shooting by forcing a bunch of turnovers, and also that'll juice our offense, and then we can outscore them that way. You'd hope that would lead to good offense, but actually their offense is 15th in the league as well. Like they're falling back into perfectly mediocre of being the 15th best offense and the 15th best defense, and they're going to go 500.
So if you're at a Basketball Reference and you look at the Hawks page, they've got like the game results, and it's these graph bars: green for wins, reds for losses. Not all of their bars, but a lot of their bars are like really high or really low, and it's basically like things worked or things didn't. And I'm here for it. I'm here for the kamikaze, the kind of wild card of what could or couldn't happen. And I'm in. Hawks are winning this. It's rational, but I think the Hawks are more for real than they are for fakes.
And so is that you picking the Hawks over the Knickerbockers?
That is me picking the Hawks of Atlanta, Georgia, over the Knickerbockers of New York City, New York.
That's awesome.
Sorry, Remy.
There's been I don't know if you want to mess with New York shooters right now. They've been really on point.
God.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's fair.
Trae Young feels like he could be a difference maker. If we're going to say that the Hawks are going to win, Trae Young having a big game in the Garden is one way that you could see that coming through.
Dylan, how are you feeling about the Trae Young resurgence, the Zach LaVine good play, the Jordan Poole was close to 40-point night, knocking off Nikola Jokic? How are you feeling about these offensive guards that I believe you've been rather critical of them on the past? Tyler Hero's played very well this season.
Yeah. The empty stats all-stars are popping off right now.
Yeah, it's December.
Yeah. Maybe I'll prepare next week and we'll do the Derrick Rose all-stars.
Is
You
that
know,
for guys who have knee surgeries? Is that
no,
the
my classic idea of like guys that get overrated because they are the best offensive player on a team that's only good because they're good at defense. Um, some surprising ones like Steph Curry and James Harden, who will get like all-star buzz for their great scoring, but on a team that actually sucks at scoring and only wins because they're good at defense. The Derrick Rose All-Stars. I don't know if Jordan
you
Poole
gotta
necessarily fits into that.
well, his team just sucks, but in games that the opponent has a 50-point scorer, he's averaging 40. So, he's tried to go mano a mano against Giannis. He's tried to go mano a mano against Jokic, and he's 1-1 in those games. So I think that's got to count for something.
Jordan Poole, band for band.
Exactly.
Talking about the briefly mentioning the New York shooting that occurred. To draw a further analogy to the play-in tournament. Supposedly, the guy came from. Didn't the guy come from Atlanta?
I have they don't. Here's the thing. In America, we don't talk to cops. I don't know where he's from. I don't know what happened. I'm legally blind in this eye and 75% blind in the other eye. We don't acknowledge who he is, where he came from, anything. That's
He's
all I'm
the
gonna say.
real life Trae Young. He's gonna come. Trae Young taking the bus from Atlanta to execute some brilliant shooting in New York. So maybe this is the foreshadowing of the Hawks upset in the in-season tournament.
I do just want to say I was mixing up my 50-piece games. It was the Victor Wembanyama 50-pointer that came against Washington and the Jokic 50-pointer.
Have there only been 2 50 points dropped against Washington this year?
Only 2 thus far. I guess once the third happens, then that's you get dubbed a 50-point factory.
I think probably the issue as to why there haven't been more, despite them having the worst defense of all time, allowing basically 122 offense rating for their opponents. The reason that there haven't been more is just because they have so few close games that to really get your scoring up, you need to be playing a lot of minutes. It's hard to get a 50-point game when you don't play at all in the fourth. Ask Klay Thompson.
Victor almost didn't get his 50-piece because there wasn't almost a need for him, and then Washington brought the game closer in the final 6 minutes, and he got out there and hit one more bucket to go from 48 to 50. And it was just good. I'm glad he has that bar. My 50-point scale does have negatives for stat padding, but I think a young guy's allowed 2 extra points. Not that was stat padding, but had he stat padded, I would not have been opposed.
Maybe the Jazz are the ideal, or Brooklyn are the ideal team to put up big numbers against, because Brooklyn is 27th in defense, so they still really suck, but they're 16th in offense and only a -4 net rating, and so they're maybe good enough to keep it close. So maybe Brooklyn is the game that guys should be targeting.
I think the game is the Minnesota Timberwolves. Every Timberwolves game, pretty much until they just blew out the Lakers, what has been a close game. They've been my league pass team. I've watched half of their games of the season just because it's oh, hey, Minnesota, solid team, played another solid team, had a close game. Let's fire up that league pass the next morning. So if you want close games, that's what Minnesota's here for.
One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is interesting. There's only one of the this is somewhat unrelated, but it's just something that I was looking at as I was looking into that. The top 10 point differentials in the league, 9 out of the 10 are also the top 10 defense. So that's pretty crazy. The Knicks are the one exception as the 17th best defense.
So what you're saying is defense is back in the NBA?
Defense is back, man. Don't let the old heads tell you anything different. Defense is back.
Can I?
This is really interesting.
Bill Simmons and Ryan Russillo, just
Yeah.
did
Who's
a
Ryan
live
Russo?
pod in Denver. He's one of the Russo brothers that did like Captain America and
Right. Right. I was like, that also
Community.
sounds like a guy.
It is. He's a but that aside, they did a live pod in Denver, and they discussed, or they. I listened to the full pod, but they also took a clip and it was circulating TikTok, and I've been meaning to stitch it. But they discussed like the idea that if you people will show clips of games from the 80s or 90s and a hard foul, and they're like, that's what all of the basketball was.
Yeah.
And like, if you watch one of those games, you know that's false. And I I had some momentary flashbacks of the "we done with the '90s" trend, calling that out. But also, I'm like, yeah, has no one ever like watched '80s or '90s basketball now? Does no one like fire up a Jordan Classic and be like, yeah, because teams don't shoot threes, they drive to the paint every time, and so you probably do have an increased number of those hard fouls. But like, it's like every sixth foul is a hard foul, and you're like, oh man, that was a hard foul, and people are like, oh, that was kind of a hard foul, even in that game, even day and age. So like, just it's different. It's totally fine, and I'm glad that they said it because they were there. They watched these games live, and it's just nice to have more people of the older generation saying that as well.
Of the older generation, you put yourself in that category, man.
No, I don't like it's.
Isn't Ben Simmons like 20 years older than you?
Oh, he's like 30 years older than me. He's like double my age. But it's just, you know, to some people, I'm an old head. To some of the kids on TikTok, I'm getting called Unc, which I've had to realize that I actually am an uncle. Like I legitimately
I guess
have
even
eight
though
nieces
Bill
and
Simmons
nephews.
is twice your age, you are twice the age of like the like 14-year-olds on TikTok that are in
I
your comments.
I did a TikTok on Jonathan Mogo, who I really like, and like that's why I did a TikTok on him. And I'm like, yeah, there's like a 40% chance he'll be out of the league because he's a 6'6" second round draft pick. That's a power forward center. Um, Shows very small indication that he'll be a 3-point shooter. Like he's a non-scoring small 4-5. I'm like, just realistically, and people are like, oh, you don't watch Raptors, you don't what? I'm like, the Raptors are my team. I've watched the Raptors probably longer than you've been alive.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's Lakers 1, Raptors 2, and it's been that way since like 2000. Sorry, I have a sense of realism, but it is what it is. Um,
Jonathan Mogo, future superstar.
I would love it. He's got splat. He has hints of Lamar Odom. The projection, the like dream projection is Draymond Green. I don't know that he's going to have that defensive impact. I don't think he has that type of verticality. He had to be the rim protector to do it, but I think he's quicker. I think he's more mobile, bringing the ball up the court. Um, you know, it's just he's a 23-year-old rookie and legitimately 6'6". No matter what they put in the brochure, if you go to the combine stats where they measured him, he measured at 6'6". That's what it is.
Fair. All right.
Yeah. I asked if we had anything more than the cup to talk about, and we said no. So I'm glad we're making time on this.
We're filling in with Jonathan Mogo upside discussions.
All right, NBA Cup, Thunder
Yeah.
Mavs. This is
Let's
awesome.
go. Yeah.
This is what
it's all about.
Right?
Two great teams, two superstars in a regular season game that matters. Like this is proof of concept.
Mm-hmm. I wish Chet was healthy, but I actually kind of think that the fact that he's hurt gives Dallas a little bit better of a chance in this. Just might make it a better game because they may be able to exploit a little bit more of their lob attack, being able to go between Gafford, Powell, and Lively. Whereas the Thunder, I love their small ball. I love the J Dub at center. Like no one taller than
Mm.
6'6" on the court lineups. But I think I think the Dallas size advantage could be really helpful in this matchup.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean that's the we saw in the playoffs. That's the way that they were able to sort of best succeed is by having more minutes of competent centers than anyone else that they were able to go against, and like that really working well with Luca. And so against a better team, but with that one little weakness, maybe that's enough to make it like a really competitive game.
I'm I don't want to rehash the awards conversation that we've had. It's way too early to do that. But I remember last season when Tyrese Halliburton was insane in the cup. And that elevated him to a lot of awards conversation. Like I think that carried him through to the All NBA third team position that he ended up getting. And I do kind of wonder if this game between Luka and Shea could elevate one of them into that MVP conversation, especially
Mm.
if the Nuggets continue to kind of slump or struggle without Murray and Gordon, and it's these amazing stats for Jokic, but they just don't win as many games. What's your thought on could one of them use this tournament as a springboard to say, "Hey, I belong as the best player in basketball"?
Yeah, no, it makes sense, and especially for the MVP as this like narrative-based award, where like these sort of moments really do have a big impact on the way that guys are talked about and the general narrative that surrounds them. And so, like when we've got close MVP races, like some of the
Mm-hmm.
things that you do look back on are things like how did you play in games that mattered? You know, like incredible clutch play has been like an argument before. And winning the in-season tournament, I actually do think is like significant enough, especially in a head-to-head against if you're able to knock off your closest competitor on along the way. I should do think that could be something that the voters look at as like a difference maker, of like a um a sort of a tiebreaker. And so I do think that like this is a chance for one of these guys who probably are due to enter that conversation, um, due for a win, time to get a first time MVP going. Um, this could be a little springboard for them. I agree. Especially if Jokic is going to keep losing to the Wizards.
Is there anything else that really? Yeah. Okay. I feel like I'm derailing this podcast a lot, but I spend 90% of my time with a child under 4 months old, and so I don't get as much adult talk time. The Jokic
As
50-piece loss, but
well, I thought you were going to compare a child under 4 months old to like the defense of the Washington Wizards or something, but that's okay. Carry on.
oh, I mean, just about, just about. I mentioned her having a bunch of nieces and nephews earlier, and actually literally being an uncle, and I think that's what I most felt during this Jokic game, because when I go visit one of my sister's kids, she's got 3 kids, and I fight them. I show up and I'm like, I'm gonna beat you guys up, and I wrestle them and I throw them around, and the oldest 2 will always try to fight me, and the youngest one is adorable. She's 3 years old and she's on my team, and I have to try to protect her from them and like help her fight them. And that's like what I felt like Jokic, just watching Jokic pitch in this game, because he was like fighting children, but he also had to protect his like own children
Yeah,
because the Nuggets weren't good, and he
he
just
had
got
3-year-old
tired.
Jamal Murray to make up for.
Except Jamal Murray's hurt and Aaron Gordon's hurt, and it was like can I help Hunter Tyson? And oh my God, why is DeAndre Jordan getting minutes and looking more competent than the other guys? Like, it is a bad sign when you're playing DeAndre Jordan, and it's a worse sign when I'm like, man, can we get some more DeAndre Jordan? Because the other guys are kind of looking rough here.
Yeah.
But that,
DeAndre Jordan's only on the team for vibes, but now he's an important role player. Like, that's not a good sign.
yeah, but that's just how I felt. Was like, it was so much of an effortless, like, battle for Jokic, where he could score anytime he wanted to. I actually wished he did more of it, but like, he gave up a ton of points on defense. He was just exhausted from carrying this team, and I I I felt like I saw him, or I saw myself in him in that game. Just this battle of meaningless opponents, but you only have so much energy and can only do so much. So that is my Jokic and children comparison.
Very good. And so, Jokic, the child beater, has opponents in the MVP race. Shea and Luka. Who do you have? Any thoughts on the matchup? What are your thoughts on the matchup? How do you see this game playing out?
I think it's going to be a really fun game. I do think the Thunder have just an insane defensive core and rotation, and that to the point that they're not going to be bothered. I think this is one of those games that we're going to look at come April or come May and look back on it and be like, yeah, Dallas was good. They're not a contender. I would expect an OKC,
interesting,
not blowout, but an easier game for OKC than I think other people would expect. Like, I don't want to quote the lines, but it's OKC minus 5.5 points. So they're saying that if OKC wins by 6, that's more impressive. I think it could be OKC by 10, and I think it could be like they have an 8 to 12 point lead pretty much the entire game.
Yeah, that does happen sometimes, especially with the Thunder. Like, where I like tune into a game, I'm like, OKC versus so and so, they're a good team. Let's see how this plays out, and then they're up by like 10 points in the first quarter, and it's like, never mind.
Yeah.
Who did they play yesterday? Who was I watching them play yesterday?
I don't know. You were watching a game that wasn't Denver, Washington? Well, what are you doing? Wizards weren't primetime viewing?
Pelicans. Okay. Maybe the Pelicans. I shouldn't have expected any better, but I was like, this could be an interesting game. The Pelicans starting to get a few guys back, Herb's back, and then they were up. They went like 12-2 in the first quarter. I'm like, okay, like this is OKC. And so I do think that there is a chance that we're really excited for this game, and then like the difference between the 6th best team in the NBA and the 1st best team in the NBA is actually so significant that that like maybe it's not competitive. And saying that,
I would like to revise my pick for the tournament. It's going to be the Thunder. The Thunder are going to be the team that win this. The Hawks will win the East.
Okay. The one thing that might give me a little bit of pause, is like, I guess they have a lot of great defenders, but I don't know if they necessarily have a guy that's a great matchup for Luka.
J-Dub.
Yeah, he could be the one. If anyone's going to do it, it has to be him. Like, he's the only one with like the theoretical combination of speed and strength that you need and length that you need to guard Luka. Like, you can't put Caruso, as great as he is, and like maybe he's like just enough to like that like poking the ball free every time is enough. But like, you can't put a smaller guy on Luka. He just bullies those guys so bad. So yeah, like if anyone's going to do it, it has to be Jalen Williams.
Yeah, Dort is shorter than
Mm,
Luca, but Dort is a fucking brick. Like,
yeah, that's a good point. Maybe Dort's because
Shea
yeah, like
also is.
that is the kind of guy that you need is like just a guy that's really strong. Um,
And like Shea is skinny, but Shea is long. Like, I think the answer is less who is the one guy you're going to put on Luca, and the
mm,
idea that you could switch a guy on him every different possession. Be like, all right, here's Caruso, here's Dort, here's J Dub, here's Shea, here's Kason Wallace, here's Aaron Wiggins, here's Kendrick Williams. Like, you could throw a decent defender at him uh, every other possession, the entire game, and like never have someone get tired defending him.
yeah, no, that's a pretty good call actually. Where like maybe there isn't one clear guy who's like, okay, that's the guy that's going to guard Luca well. But when you add up like a 10% chance that it's Caruso and a 5% chance that SGA can guard him, and then a 20% chance that Lou Dort and a 25% chance that Jalen Williams can, it's like you eventually like add up a lot of chance, um,
Mm-hmm.
which is rough. And then um, Kyrie is actually having a really incredible season. Um, but I feel like Shea and Caruso are both pretty good matchups against him, where
Mm-hmm.
like you want guys with a lot of length. So I think Shea's maybe a pretty good matchup.
Yeah. I think Dallas's best chance of winning this is can PJ Washington get hot? Can PJ Washington get hot? Um, there is not a guy with a lot of length to defend a PJ Washington catch and shoot three. Like if you're helping in and you're trying to go to Luca or Kyrie, getting back out to those other guys, like the OKC is small. So the closeouts, if Washington catch and shoot, who it's like he can get that shot up before anyone can get back out to them. If those are hitting well, um, that's gonna be difficult. And to a lesser extent, Quentin Grimes and Clay Thompson. I don't know why I couldn't think of Clay's name, but if the shooters are really hitting, that's the great equalizer. I think that there's going to be enough pressure on Luca, on Kyrie, that they're not going to get quite as quick or not quite as many open kickouts.
Hmm. Um,
But
I like that call of PJ Washington being a potential X factor as well. I think defensively as well. Like in the playoffs last year, they were really able to deploy him like suddenly as like this on ball stopper. After playing like
mhm.
his entire career in Charlotte, just doing nothing defensively. Maybe the odd highlight block if he wanted to lock into one position. And then all of a sudden, like he like they realized like, oh, this guy's actually good at moving his feet, and he's like 230 pounds, and he's got length, and he can like block shots.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if like this guy can actually guard. And so I feel like he, as an on-ball guy against Shea, or as like that weak side help defender, if you need him against SGA, who's like so good at just getting angles to get to the rim,
Mm-hmm.
having a guy that does have like that, um, that come from behind, that recovery blocking ability, is maybe a good matchup.
Speaking of, nope, not going to say it like that. Oh,
Where the hell is that going? Move on.
someone used that phrase, the phrase that you and I are thinking of, on a Grady Dick play. And yeah. Moving on. Are you taking Dallas? Or are you taking OKC? I'm OKC. Let's lock it in.
Yeah. Okay. See.
All right. Last game.
And
Houston.
yeah, you're
Golden
taking
State.
you're taking the over on their
Oh,
what is it, 5.5?
Yes, yes. Not to bandy about gambling advice, but I'm taking the over. I like that. I think Dallas is good. What is their actual record? It's a good record. They're the 2 seed in the West, 16
16
and
and 8
eight.
I've got.
Um, yeah,
Plus
I
8 net
I
rating, top 4 on offense, top 10 on defense.
I think OKC is going to show them how big that gap is. So they're 1-2, and I think there's a bigger gap than the record suggests.
All right. The final matchup.
Golden State, Houston. Can I just say how happy I am that Houston has picked what they're going to be? Because earlier in the year, I described them as three goblins in a trench coat, and they still kind of are. But they've at least chosen the goblin that is insane defense and just like
Yeah.
crazy pressure and length. And then it's like, okay, if Jalen Green has a good game, we'll ride him. If Fred VanVleet is hitting, we'll play that hot hand. If it's a Şengün game, we'll do Şengün. But like our calling card, our staple, what we're going to build our team around is this crazy group of defenders: Jabari Smith, Tari Eason, Thompson, and Dylan Brooks. I always leave out Dylan Brooks because I just think of the guys they drafted, but anyone who's called me out for that, Dylan Brooks, there, he's in there. Where do you want to go with this? I know that this is the 4th and the 5th seed in the West, but I feel like this is another one that could be kind of lopsided in my mind. Just
to Houston.
To Houston. Golden State keeps trying out new things. They've announced that Draymond Green's no longer going to be starting for the next little bit, giving Jonathan Kuminga more play, trying to balance defense and offense. But really, they start off the year super strong behind really strong Buddy Hield play, and then Hield's three-point shooting has dropped off.
Just like I said,
it's a too many cooks problem. They have 12 guys who have appeared in. Okay, they have 12 guys who have appeared in 17 or more games. Curry has only played in 17 games.
Yeah,
but
because Curry's playing a freaking 12-man rotation for most of the season.
It's too many guys. It's just too many guys. Like, that's after DeAnthony Melton got hurt. If Melton hadn't gotten hurt, it'd be a 13-man rotation. I don't even know how you can do a 13-man rotation. Like, I coached high school ball. I struggled to do a 10-man rotation just because, like, unless you're going to do full platoon swaps, you shouldn't be playing 12 guys. Like, you should have some sort of top group that get the minutes. Not, you don't have to go full Tibbsian, but there needs to be some sort of difference between Tibbs and Kerr. Or like some middle ground in there.
Yeah. And like depth is good. Like it's good to have guys who can play on the bench.
Sure.
But like you need to keep track of the fact that the way that you succeed is by your best guys being a lot better than your opponent's best guys. Like the bench only gets you so far, but you need your best players to be the ones that are elevating you. The Warriors are the 21st best offense, and they're 20 points better when Steph's on the floor. Like he just needs to be on the floor more. Like they're an elite offense when he's on, and they're terrible when he's off.
Do you think Curry can be on the floor more? He's getting 30 minutes a night right now. No one on the Warriors is getting more minutes than him. And like Wiggins and Green are both at 28 minutes per game. Like, do you think a bit of this is just like Curry cannot play at this level for 35 minutes a night regularly anymore?
I mean, when you're dealing with such small margins, like we're talking 18 minutes when he's off the floor, 2, 3, 4 minutes more is like a big percentage of those minutes. And so like maybe the answer isn't playing 36, 37, but 33, 34, 35. He's one of the best conditioned NBA players, in recent history, and their offense is so dependent on whether or not he's on the floor that an extra 4 minutes is another 20% of your off-court minutes, um,
I
that can make a big difference.
I fully agree. I just that feels like one of the most obvious Monday morning quarterbacking is of this of like you have superstar play superstar like I don't know this doesn't seem like complicated math and I at least believe that Steve Kerr is a smart guy like I'm in Warriors fan groups because I'm in a lot of teams fan groups to try to know what their fans are thinking
And they're all
we're
insane.
they are all insane. I will still say being a Lakers fan the Lakers fan groups are the worst fan groups because it's like can we trade Jared Vanderbilt, Gabe Vincent, and like second round picks and end up with Trae Young? Drives me crazy. But like you have generational talent. You're very good when you play generational talent. Why not play generational talent more? Like it feels like there has to be something limiting that factor. I don't know if that's the idea we need to keep Curry fresh, if that's the idea we can't he just doesn't have that grind in him anymore. He doesn't have those minutes in him anymore. And to get the level of production that he's playing at, he needs to keep his minutes down below. And I would kind of lean more towards that second explanation that to be this efficient and play at this level, he can't do it in long minute bursts.
I mean, or maybe it's you can't play a guy 34, 35 minutes a game when you've also got to find, minutes for all of these freaking bench guys. Like to get Gary Payton his 12 minutes a game, that like you've got to take them from someone. Like you got to drag everyone down.
I'm okay with that. Cut out the Gary Payton minutes. Cut out the whole thing with the next man up mentality. And like that was the Golden State roster. Their I forget what their slogan was. It wasn't next man up, but it was something very cheesy like that back in 2015.
Yeah.
Was when someone gets hurt, you jump in and you always stay ready. You always are good to go. That's very different than all of these guys playing in every game. That's not stay ready and be able to jump in. That's get your 15 minutes of cardio in a night. Like,
yeah.
I don't think you need Kyle Anderson in every single game. I don't think you need the Kevon Looney in every game.
Yeah, like you can choose between Kevon Looney and Trayce Jackson-Davis, and like you can choose between Podziemski and D'Anthony Melton, and you can choose between Moses Moody and Lindy Waters. Like it doesn't need to be 15 minutes a game for all of them.
Exactly. And then when one of them gets hurt, like what happened with Melton, now you give those 20 minutes a night that Melton was getting to someone else, as opposed to giving everyone 2 more minutes. And like,
and then also bringing in like Gary Payton and then Pat Spencer to freaking play more minutes as well.
Yeah, it just, I don't know. I think this is. I know we didn't do like a ton of this tactic versus that tactic for Golden State or Houston. Forgive me, I'm getting tired. I've been up since 4 a.m. with a newborn. But I just, the problems with Golden State have remained the problems with Golden State is that they have not figured out a way to play that is not Curry ball, and they've not figured out what the rest of their team is. What, is Kuminga the next face? Is he the new star? Wiggins is playing good again. Wiggins is back. And that's great, but still hasn't really answered any of the questions. And I think until Kerr makes that decision and can narrow this roster from 12 guys playing in every game to 8 guys playing in every game, and then like some bit minutes for others is just a problem.
Counter argument, for the purposes of analyzing this one game against Houston, is this the time that a game now matters? Maybe we do shorten the rotation. We lean more into Steph Curry. He plays more. He shoots more. We are focusing on creating shots for him. We get that usage into the mid 30s. Olympic style. When this is the time that we need this guy, this is the time that he steps up. We shorten the rotation, we play him more, and he's able to carry us as clearly, I think, the best player in this game. In theory, that means something. Like this, maybe this is the time. A game finally that matters.
Counter theory.
Yeah, hit me.
You don't play Curry. You don't play Curry. You play Jonathan Kuminga. You say, Kuminga, you wanted an extension. You wanted the money. Go get it. Here's your chance. $500,000 if you win this tournament, and then we'll give you an extension. Go earn it. And this I meant to say this more when we were talking Thunder, but a lot of the Thunder guys have been really underpaid in their careers. Lou Dort signed he was a second round or a second rounder undrafted, but he initially kind of signed a non-guaranteed deal and then signed a 4-year very restrictive deal. Well, that was $2 million a year, and now he's finally on a 10 mil or something deal. But Dort didn't make the money. Hartenstein, he finally got his first big contract after 9 years in the league, not making the money. J-Dub has not
been
made
out
the
of the
money.
league at times.
Yeah. I'm just saying, for the guys that haven't made the money yet, this $500,000 could mean a lot. I don't know if $500,000 means a ton to Curry when he's one of the highest paid players in the league. He's not into that low income housing. Maybe he's not into helping some of his lower income teammates afford housing. just saying.
Or maybe it's the opposite. He wasn't even willing to lose $500,000 in property value in order to create housing for lower income residents, and therefore he's not going to be willing to sacrifice this $500,000 in bonus money that he gets. He's going to be looking across. He's going to be looking across the court at these Tyrese and these young guys that are like, man, $500,000 is actually a pretty big percentage, and he's like, I hate people who only make $6 million a year. I despise these subhuman broke boy millionaires.
Riff raff. Oh my god, that would just be hilarious. I do kind of love picturing Curry as a maniacal villain.
Yeah, he's looking across at Aaron Holiday making the minimum, and he's like, "You disgust me. I'm making sure you don't get this money."
I'm just saying, though, all right, I picked Houston. Are you picking Houston? Because I want to zoom out. I want to talk big picture.
I'll take Golden State.
Okay.
I like the best player in the game wins the big game.
That's fair. Big picture though, how do we feel about the in-season tournament? Where are you at with it?
It is certainly an improvement on not having it. It's better than not having it. But obviously it's still trying to make up for the fact that there are too many games. It's like putting the Band-Aid on the open wound. It's like, okay, yeah, it does do something, but it's not actually fixing it. So it's an improvement. Yeah, so overall, I should be more positive because I think it actually is a good thing, even if the way to make regular season games matter is actually just have fewer of them. But yeah, they're not going to do that, and so yeah, overall, I'm down. It's a good thing. Hopefully, these knockout rather games prove to be as entertaining as we hope that they can be.
I'm with you there. I think my biggest critiques at this point are, one, the idea of doing the small groups and we have these 6 different groups in these small group stages, I think is way too complicated and confusing. In the past, I've pushed that these should just be divisions, so that way one who's in everyone's group. Yes, there will be better and worse groups.
Yeah, but there's also better and worse groups because you're basing it on the previous record when there are injuries and free agency and trades, teams aren't consistent year to year, and so it's already
Yeah. So I think having the three groups is it just complicated from like a tie breaking standpoint. Like, hey, we're gonna take the best team from each group, and then um, the biggest point differential from one of the three groups is also going to get in, and it's unnecessarily complicated. And so I propose once we have expansion, have 32 teams, instead of doing six groups, two in each conference, you shrink that down, two groups in each conference. Um, so then you've got groups of eight. You play each of the other teams. So that's 7 games in your little group stage. And instead of doing that mixed in, instead of having those games be Tuesday, Friday, and having the special courts to signify that's cup time, it's a 2-week stretch where all of the games are just cup games. Like the actual standings kind of fade away. No one's looking at the actual standings. Games being played don't, they will contribute to the actual standings, but like you're not looking at two sets of standings and this game is a cup game and this game's not a cup game. Just decomplicate this. Make it be 2 weeks of group play followed by a week of tournament, like the 18 bracket. Maybe it needs to be 3 weeks of group play, but like that could make this so much more entertaining. And as opposed to all the complications we had earlier, trying to figure out who wins what, gets in where, like that is just my one thing is I'm really excited for the bracket play, but the group stage was just an absolute mess and shit show, and I don't think encouraged anyone to watch the games more.
Yeah, probably my biggest complaint about the group stage, which is similar, I guess, to one of the points you made, is that because there are so few games, like one game actually can like eliminate you. Like if your best player is just hurt in this one random game, and like it's just got like tweaked an ankle, and it's just gonna miss this one game that like you lose it, and then you're out of the tournament. Is maybe a little bit too dramatic, and so having more games, if you're playing 7 of them, you can lose 2, maybe 3 games and still be in with a chance.
Yeah, I'm like I get the idea of having that because those are stakes. You're very interested in winning, and as soon as you lose that first game, your chances of advancing are significantly lower. But at the same time, the first the first 15 games you will have 15 losers, and now those 15 losers no longer are as actively invested or trying to win this nearly as much because they're mathematically not eliminated but closer to being eliminated than not. So I don't know. It's fine. I'm excited for the bracket stage, but I think the actual rest of this could use a lot of work.
Fair.
I would have been way more excited if the Pistons had made it though.
Yeah, that's the one downside about the way that this bracket is turned out. Other than maybe the Hawks, is like there's this idea of like the like young up and coming Cinderella team can in theory make a good run, which we haven't really seen. Unless you want to like say that the Lakers are there because they're a 500 team that won the tournament.
I don't think you call them a young Cinderella team, but you could certainly call them a non-contending,
a non-contending team that was able to turn it on for the Pacers, I guess, if they had
they
made it to the finals and they're sort of that.
Yeah,
although they were playing probably much better at the time.
But if you like look at the teams that are in the cup, out west you've got the 1 seed, the 2 seed, the 4 seed, and the 5 seed. So 4 out of the top 5 seeds. In the East, Cleveland and Boston ended up in the same group and kind of cancel each other out. Atlanta is the one that snuck in from that bracket group by winning against, I believe it was both those teams at least. I know they beat Cleveland, but you've got the 3, the 4, the 5, and the 7. And the Bucks being the 7th seed is kind of more of a testament to their early season struggles. I would fully expect them to move up in standings. So it's not like you've gotten a lot of the lesser teams or the other teams that were like, there's no chance they'll make it in the playoffs or they're first round fodder. Like you got solid teams.
Yeah, no, it's good. And like I think that it was kind of a simple idea, but like the courts, I think are actually were a really good idea. Like when I'm pulling up random NBA games because I my tiny brain can't follow the concept of the in-season tournament format, that I can like turn on the TV and be like, oh, the court is hurting my eyes. I know that it's a more important game.
We gotta
So
do
I think
something about
that's a great idea.
we gotta do something about the court designs. Like they don't need to all be this insanely bright color. It's okay. You can have a court design that signifies it's the tournament and is not the Boston Celtics neon green or Kelly green that hurts my eyes. I will say though, 15-year-old Nate would have fucking loved it. I think it's NBA Live or NBA 2K17. They had a blacktop court that you could play like stadium games in. That was just all black, like with white lines. I played almost every game on that. That was like my favorite court to play on. So I'm in. Just do it with dark colors, not neon colors. It's not a hard thing to figure out. The muted purples, the blues, like those were really nice courts. Well, Dylan, any final takes for this pod?
No, man, we out of here.
All right. Where can the people find you?
Every week sometimes on the Hoops Temple podcast.
Find me Nate_Hoops Temple on TikTok, at least until January 19th when it's officially banned in the United States. You can email the show, hoopstemple@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you guys. Thanks for listening.